Good morning, students. Sai Ram. Today we shall move on to the next tag, that is frames. HTML frames are used to divide your browser window into multiple sections where each section can load a separate HTML document. A collection of frames in the browser window is known as frame set. The window is divided into frames in a similar way. The tables are organized into rows and columns. Now, what are the disadvantages of frames? There are few drawbacks while using frames. So, it's never recommended to use frames in your web pages. Some smaller devices cannot cope with frames often because their screen is not big enough to divide it up. Sometimes your page will be displayed differently on different computers due to different screen resolution. The browser's back button might not work as the user hopes. There are still few browsers that do not support frame technology. Now, how to create frames? To use frames on a page, we use FrameSet tag instead of body tag. The FrameSet tag defines how to divide the window into frames. The rows attribute of FrameSet tag defines horizontal frames and column attribute defines vertical frames. Each frame is indicated by frame tag and it defines which HTML document shall open into the frame. Now we shall see the FrameSet tag attributes. The first attribute is column, that is cols. Specifies how many columns are contained in the frame set and the size of each column. We can specify the width of each column in one of the following ways. The first one is absolute values in pixels. For example, to create 3 vertical frames, use column is equal to the double quotes 100, 400, 100. The second one is a percentage of the browser window. For example, to create 3 vertical frames, use cols is equal to, in the double quotes, write it in percentage, 10%, 80%, 10%. Now the third one is using a wildcard symbol. For example, to create 3 vertical frames, use cols is equal to, in the double quotes, 10%, star, 10%, and close the double quotes. In this case, wildcard takes remainder of the window. Last one is as relative widths of the browser window. For example, to create 3 vertical frames, use cols is equal to, the double quotes, 3, the wildcard star, 2, the wildcard star, 1, the wildcard star, and close the double quotes. This is an alternative to percentages. We can use relative widths of the browser window. Here the window is divided into 6. The first column takes up half of the window, the second takes 1/3, and the third takes 1/6. Now the second attribute is rows. This attribute works just like the column attribute and takes the same values, but it is used to specify the rows in the frame set. The next attribute is border. The attribute specifies the width of the border of each frame in pixels. The next attribute is FrameBorder. This attribute specifies whether a three-dimensional border should be displayed between frames. This attribute takes value either 1 or 0. For example, frame border is equal to 0 specifies no border. The next one is frame spacing. This attribute specifies the amount of space between frames in a frame set. This can take any integer value. For example, frame spacing is equal to 10 means there should be 10 pixels spacing between each frames. Now coming to the frame tag attributes, the first tag attribute is src. This attribute is used to give the file name that should be loaded in the frame. Its value can be any URL. For example, src is equal to, in the double quotes, filename.html will load an HTML file available in HTML directory. The second attribute is name. This attribute allows you to give a name to a frame. It is used to indicate which frame document should be loaded into. This is especially important when we want to create links in one frame that load pages into another frame, in which case the second frame needs a name to identify itself as the target of the link. Now the frame border. The attribute specifies whether or not the borders of that frame are shown. It overrides the value given in the frame border attribute on the frame set tag if 1 is given, and this can take values either 1 or 0. The next attribute is margin height. The attribute allows you to specify the height of the space between the top and bottom of the frame's border and its contents. The value is given in pixels. For example, margin height is equal to, the double quotes, 10. No resize. By default, you can resize any frame by clicking and dragging on the borders of a frame. The no resize attribute prevents a user from being able to resize the frame. For example, no resize is equal to, the double quotes, no resize. Scrolling. This attribute controls the appearance of the scroll bars that appear on the frame. This takes values either S, no, or auto. For example, scrolling is equal to no means it should not have scroll bars. Long description. This attribute allows you to provide a link to another page containing a long description of the contents of the frame. For example, long long desc is equal to, in the double quotes, frame description dot html. So children, today we have seen what is a frame, how to create frame, the attributes of frame set and frame tag. Thank you.